Hello, peace be upon you. Welcome to the First Rational Religion live stream. Today we're going to be talking about the secret to happiness. I'm here with my brother Tahir Nasser and brother Damir Musa Rafi. Now, in order to explore what the secret to happiness is, we're going to ask ChatGPT. Hit it. The secret to happiness is a complex and subjective topic, and there is no one-size-fits-all answer. Here are some general principles that may contribute to a happy life. Okay, why don't you go through these with us?
Cultivate positive relationships, practice gratitude, engage in activities that bring you joy. Well, who would have thought? Take care of your physical and mental health. Live in alignment with your values. That's very interesting.
Scroll down a bit.
And in a previous answer, actually, interestingly, it was said it also talked about mindfulness, which we've covered extensively
and finding
before.
your purpose, I guess, saying, activities that bring you joy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, this last one. Knowing your personal values and living in accordance with them can give your life a sense of meaning and purpose. That's an interesting phrasing, isn't it? A sense of meaning and purpose. What kind of sense is that? Is that an illusion? Because it's just saying, give it a sense, give it the appearance. But can you have an appearance of meaning and purpose? What do you think, Pajin?
I think that they're good answers in a general kind of sense. If you wanted to, if somebody came to you on the street and said, "How do I be happy?" I mean, I think this would be a good first answer, just to get out of the way. I think we could probably pick plenty of logical holes in them.
Yeah.
Going from the top, cultivate positive relationships. I think that's reasonable. I don't think we can argue with that. No, I don't think we can argue with that.
But can you talk a bit about this idea of finding a sense of meaning and purpose?
Well, I mean, I think that it's very difficult to develop a sense of meaning and purpose because any meaning you ultimately choose for yourself will be extinguished with your death. And therefore, it will ultimately just evaporate in the ether of time. Mm-hmm. With the heat death of the universe, it doesn't matter how many nations you conquered. Ultimately, it would all be meaningless anyway. So even if you take the grandest projects a human being could ever choose for themselves, it's either a logical failing of yours to think that actually it has real meaning, or you are self-deceiving yourself into thinking that actually because you on this tiny little blue planet, floating on this particular corner of the Milky Way, do something in some particular locale that it actually has some meaning. So really what they mean by meaning and purpose is actually distraction from the inevitability of your mortality.
That's in a very atheistic kind of materialistic perspective on the world, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying in that kind of perspective on the world, there is no meaning will be extinguished by the death of the universe, but ultimately the death of you.
Not even the universe. I mean, you could probably, for most people, you could probably give it 50 years probably from their death, whereby anybody who knew them or really loved them actually remembers them, or that they continue to have a significant impact. For most people, it's probably like an average of 15 years. That would be a really interesting study to do. Find out the average age of people's uselessness after death in terms of their effect on the world.
It'd be hard to figure out, though.
It would be hard.
The data's already automatically censored by history and time.
Yeah. But this is a very current philosophy, I think, and it reminds me of the video of Stephen Fry where he talked about how can I be happy?
That's what kicked this all off.
It did.
That's what kicked off the whole channel.
It did. But I think that talked very much about creating a sense of meaning and purpose, and it's become quite a doctrine of humanism and kind of new atheism, but atheism as it is at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I suppose we're trying to get to is the fact that unless you actually have a paradigm and a worldview which has the concept of a life after death, then you can't actually have real meaning and purpose. Because, if an atheist looks at the world and all of their actions, what do they see? They see, a black hole at the end of their life into which all of their actions disappear. And and this is the key sentence for me, I think, which is that it would not have mattered whether they had lived or died. Their existence had no effect on the grand scheme of things. But for a religious person and a person who believes and knows that there is a life after death, every action is in fact imbued with meaning, because in every action you do in life, it will in actual fact bear some form of consequence for you in the afterlife.
Purpose is to do with goals, I think, as well. So I think, thinking maybe my purpose is to become a runner or something like that. That's kind of like a real purpose, and people maybe set themselves their purpose. I think meaning is more to do with the existential question of what does the universe mean and why.
Just to unpick that a little bit, I'm just thinking, let's say there is no afterlife, but you are actually designed by God with a purpose. I mean, this doesn't make sense in the overall theistic conception. But let's say God has created us for a particular purpose, but death is the end. We could still be able to fulfill that purpose here on earth if that is preset for us.
Yeah.
Because it is something that is given to us by God as per his design. And in that way, we have a purpose. So we can still fulfill that purpose, even if the fulfillment of that purpose is not unending. Would you say that's fair?
Yes. But
it wouldn't be concordant with God's attributes, because why would he do something which kind of has such a finite?
I don't think that you could say it has a purpose limited. It would have a purpose kind of limited it to your life. And you could say that people who choose atheistic, materialistic goals for their life, they do have a purpose for the duration of their life. What we're getting to is that they do not have a purpose which outlasts their life and which gives them and fulfills the innate desire of a human being, which is not to die. You see, death and the fear of death, the reason it's overriding any other purpose is, because obviously you can have purpose while you're living because you can go around and do things. But the whole idea is that once you are finished and you're in the ground, then all of that didn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore because you don't exist.
Yeah.
So
it's automatically unbelievably
the question,
limited.
It is. So it doesn't make a difference if you say, well, I've got to set you a purpose during your life, because that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a sense of purpose which actually conquers death.
And if our purpose has been pre-designed, I guess anything else that we set for ourselves becomes inconsequential. It's like last time I was here, I talked about cows, but it's kind of...
Yeah, we edited that out.
the fact
that the one rule for this stream: no cows, Demir. We know you really like, fine.
The fact that ultimately the purpose of rearing cows is to produce the best quality meat possible. And any other purpose that the cows set for themselves within their lifetimes, ultimately we don't care about, because we're the masters of the cows, and what we care about is the quality of meat they produce.
The UK we know.
There are vegetarians whose heads are exploding as we speak. He's saying the purpose of the cows is what we said for them.
Yeah, but it's right. Analogy, right?
Yeah, and I guess it's the same thing. If there's an external higher being that's created us, then the purpose that we set for ourselves can only be of limited value, because the purpose that God has set for us, or that higher being, is more valuable.
Which then means that atheists setting purposes for themselves is actually something completely meaningless. Right? Yeah. Because if you set yourself a purpose, if you just pick something out which is dependent on your own learning, your own education, your own environment, it's not really a purpose, because it's not what you're here really to do.
Yeah.
In that case, if you have been born out of an accidental Big Bang, an accidental universe, and you're just the result of kind of random mutations, you don't have a purpose. What you're trying to give yourself is a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
You don't have a purpose.
No, you're trying to give yourself a distraction.
Yeah, with the appearance of a purpose.
With the appearance of purpose, and people do know this. Okay, so the idea that we're telling anybody something they don't know is nonsense. I mean, this is every single person who hits the age of 40 and then 50 and then 60 and then 70. I mean, there's a reason why they love their birthdays when they're kids, and then they love their birthday when they're 20, and they love their birthday a little less when they're 30, they love it even less when they're 40, and as it goes through the years, when you get a bit older, it actually becomes, I've seen it, right? It becomes a source of sorrow.
Not in your own life.
No, not mine. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm cool, man. But and also I believe in God, and I have a religious outlook on the world. But I've seen it in people who are non-religious. What are you guys laughing about? It's a completely reasonable point.
You're like in Vietnam or something. You went there, man. You went there. I've seen things.
I'm making a completely reasonable point. Okay, and the point is this: that I've seen it in people, which is that as they get older, their birthdays become a time of sorrow for them, because it only reminds them of their own
diminishing mortality.
And they come to realize that all the hopes and the dreams that they wished for their life, in actual fact, usually haven't been fulfilled in the way they intended to, and even if they have been fulfilled, they didn't grant them a sense of fulfillment that they had hoped for. I mean, there's a great poem by Philip Larkin. Do you guys know who Philip Larkin is?
No. While you find that
poems in,
while you find that, I'm gonna just pick up on that for a second, which is that the theistic, because what we're ultimately doing is we're comparing two different world's views, the atheistic and the theistic. And I think the theistic, from what I'm hearing, is basically got two major advantages, or has two fundamental differences to the atheistic worldview for this question of purpose and meaning. One, we actually have a purpose because we have been created by God in order to fulfill a specific goal which is set by God. And two, the meaning that we exercise, that we find, and that the purpose that we fulfill is unending. So it doesn't die with death. So we actually have, it's like from before our lives, we are given purpose, and after our lives, we are able to continually fulfill that purpose even after our death. Whereas the atheist has no purpose given and no meaning after death.
Yeah, and I think this lack of meaning is actually at the heart of a lot of this mental health crisis that people talk about.
We don't know anything about that.
Well, I'm an intensive care doctor. I really have no idea about that. But you guys are psychiatric trainees, so I'll leave that to you.
One in 8 adults are on antidepressants in this country.
Is that it?
And
practically all my patients are. Well, not all
because they're in
them.
intensive care, though.
That's true.
But yeah, and I think that symbolizes the fact we're in like the highest age of technological advancement probably there's ever been. We can get things delivered to our doors within a few hours, from whatever we want. But yet still there's this crisis within, we can say, our souls, or within our culture, our society.
Which is manifesting as depression, anxiety, at least for many people. There are many causes, but I think that is a current which comes through, isn't it? A kind of existential dissatisfaction.
Yeah, and an unawareness of purpose and meaning. And
What has Philip Larkin got to say about this?
So I really love this poem. This is one of my favorite poems, and I haven't actually thought about it in years, so I don't know why it's just suddenly popped into my head. But it's about this young woman. It's called Love Songs and Age. And I have to thank Mr. Green, my English teacher, for imbuing me with a love of Philip Larkin. I've been trying to get in touch with him. He's not picking up his phone.
Maybe he's watching.
If you're watching this, Mr. Green, I want to come see how you are. Okay, right. But I'm not going to read the whole poem, but it's basically about a woman who comes across.
Is this by Pinto?
No. It's not. No, it's not about Pinto. It's about. It's by Philip Larkin. So it's about a woman who comes across these records, right? So songs. And she, from when she was young, and they're love songs from when she's young, pop songs from when she's young, and she plays them again, and it's really powerful. So she says,
sounds deep. When should we do
it? Is okay. So she says she kept her songs; they kept so little space. Oh, I'm back at GCSE. Okay, she kept her songs, they kept so little space. The covers pleased her, one bleached from lying in a sunny place, one marked in circles by a vase of water, one mended when a tidy fit had seized her and coloured by her daughter. So they had waited till in widowhood she found them looking for something else, and we're going to come back to that, and stood relearning how each frank submissive chord had ushered in word after sprawling hyphenated word, and the unfailing sense of being young, spread out like a spring-woken tree wherein that hidden freshness sung, that certainty of time laid up in store, as when she played them first. But even more, the glare of that much-mentioned brilliance, love, broke out to show its bright incipience sailing above, still promising to solve and satisfy and set unchangeably in order. So to pile them back, to cry, was hard, without lamely admitting how it had not done so then and could not now.
Wow, that's a really good poem. Okay.
And it speaks.
What do you take from that?
Well, what she's done is she's come across these records, she's played them, and then as an older woman who's been through love, she's had a daughter. Okay, she's enjoying partly the remembrance of the promise of romantic love, which is, I think, a major deception that society. No,
what does your wife think?
No, it is a major deception of today. She agrees with me. She taught me this, actually. So it's a major deception of today's culture, which is that you fall in love and that will make you happy. Right, that you will be contented and fulfilled, and so what? Really advertising my marriage here, but this is what this is about. She's playing her records, she's playing her songs, and she's remembering the promise of love and what the promise of love was for her as a young woman. And now she's realizing, with the benefit of hindsight and having gone through life's experience, that to set them back, To pile them back, to cry was hard without lamely admitting how it had not done so then, love had not done so then, and could not now. It couldn't, despite its bright incipient sailing above. What a wonderful phrase, right? Still promising to solve and satisfy and set unchangeably in order. So this is what people want out of romantic love, and that's powered a lot by media and by Hollywood. Right?
Yeah. And we have a lot of other things that people also look to. Romantic love is possibly the biggest one, but things like career and wealth, and even like going for causes like climate change activism or something. I mean, you've recently been writing about this, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this quite a bit, about happiness and contentment and fulfillment, and what the causes were and what the solutions might be, and some of which we've talked about. So I guess a major thing is career, is kind of, trying to make something of yourself, trying to achieve things. And I've got some examples of people who have tried to do that, and perhaps it's not worked out as they'd planned.
Can I ask, what have you found in kind of your life, your social circles, or people that you've met over the years? Kind of how have you found, as a young person, people have tried to set their life in order? And what,
as a young one, what have you found in recent years?
I think
talk about cows.
I think in recent years, things that have come up quite a lot, just modern life and culture, is things like activism. And being an activist for social causes. And this I found in the last 3, 4, 5 years, maybe because of the decline of the state of the world, people are really kind of rising up and trying to do things and trying to campaign for, whether it be climate change or ending wars or all kinds of things like that. And so I've noticed that quite a lot among my social circles, among, people who I see often, work with. And I found, on the surface, it seems to be quite a good way of attaining happiness. People say, well, helping others is a great way of doing things. And I guess that's true to an extent. But then those people also are often quite anxious, quite low in mood, quite depressed sometimes. And it's a kind of an interesting dichotomy that they're doing what society expects of them, and yet they're still kind of failing to reach the happiness that they want.
And do you think that's kind of driving why they're not feeling great? It's because they expected to find better happiness in these things? I
think to an extent. And I think, unfortunately, with the state of the world at the moment, things seem to be declining in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy for people to have a sense of hopelessness, that, look, we're trying to advocate for these causes that we believe in. And yet, despite that, these things aren't working out, and the people that we want aren't being elected, or the change that we want isn't being actually happening within society. And I think that can make people feel very helpless. A loss of control. And I think people can really struggle with it if they care about something and that goal isn't being delivered.
So then, if let's say they figured out that, let's say you have political activists and climate justice activists, whatever it is, social justice activists, let's say they get all of their goals fulfilled. Somehow there's some magical candidate and they're able to campaign for them, and they get into place, and there's all global warming solved, and you can't solve that. But let's say for this person, they've solved all these political problems. Do you think then they would be happy and fulfilled?
I think they might be happier, but I still think that there would be a gap and a gulf. And I still think that it wouldn't quite lead to personal fulfillment and contentment. Yeah. And I think we can see that from the fact that basically every celebrity, who you can think of, if you type in Google their name and then depression, you'll probably find that they've suffered with mental health issues or something of the sort. And I'm not saying all of those things are related to a lack of meaning or purpose or fulfillment.
Yeah.
But I think it shows that wealth and money and fame and having everything that you want within your own sphere and within your own life, positive relationships, still can't bring people to true fulfillment.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it brought my attention to mind to an article which I read. It's a very famous psychology study. So it's called, this article is about this in an online paper called The Cut. It's called A Classic Psychology Study on Why Winning the Lottery Won't Make You Happier. And in 1978, some researchers at Northwestern University and the University of Massachusetts basically rated happiness for two different groups of people. Recent winners of the Illinois State Lottery, whose prizes range from $50,000 to $1 million in 1978, right? And
Wow, that's a lot of money.
That's one group. And recent victims of catastrophic accidents who are now paraplegic or quadriplegic.
Okay.
Okay. And the very interesting thing is, so this was a year after these events happened. And the interesting thing is that they found that on average, the winners' ratings of everyday happiness were 3.33 out of 5. And the accident victims' average answers were 3.48.
Out of 5.
Out of 5. So and then it goes on to say the lottery winners did report more present happiness than the accident victims. 4 out of 5 compared to victims is 2.96. But as the authors note, the paraplegic rating of present happiness is still above the midpoint of the scale.
Yeah.
Which is an extraordinary thing. And so this is became known as what's known as the hedonic treadmill or the hedonic adaptation. They rate their happiness in the context of those things having happened. And I think that what that indicates is that happiness is a forward-looking metric. And so whenever you have, it's not about what's happened to you in the past. It's about where you are and where you're going, where you want to go to. And this is one of the things that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized. He said that, do not look do not look at those beneath you in the social dynamic of poverty. But do not look at the people above you in the social dynamic. Look at those who have less than you, because people are a major driver of unhappiness. I think is the extravagant display of wealth in society today.
Yeah,
and the idea that you can never have enough because there's always somebody who's got more than you, right?
Some 18-year-old on Instagram selling a course with his Lamborghini or something.
Yeah. So in a way, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how much success you have. There's always another person who's got more than you, and therefore you always feel inadequate in comparison to their success. And so happiness is a forward-looking thing, depending on where you are, and inequality plays a big part of that. And I think for the religious person who doesn't just see a few years, doesn't just see a few decades, even doesn't even look at it from the perspective of what's my pension pot going to be. They're always looking at it in terms of what's the outcome going to be? Is God going to be pleased with me after death? The great thing about that perspective is that it levels out all the materialistic stuff, because the guy in his hut in the middle of the Sahara has just as much opportunity to do good and to win God's pleasure as a person in the metrosexual in New York. Okay. So God levels the playing field for everyone, and this is why one of the things I'll say is that this is why, in actual fact, when you really logically ask the question of what could the purpose of life be, it can't be anything to do with intelligence. It can't be anything to do which is localized to time and place and society.
On the premise that God has created us, then.
Yeah, on the premise that God has created us. The only thing it could be related to is the choices that you make in life and how God judges you for those, because choices are equally spread between the caveman and the modern man.
And the currency of prayer is also equally accessible to you wherever you are in the world.
Yeah.
And whatever time you happen to be born in.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of quotes from the Prophet Muhammad from sayings. So there was one where he said something along the lines of if a man had a valley full of gold, he would look at the man with 2 valleys, or he would wish for 2 valleys of gold. And another one where he said that richness is not having wealth or property, but it's contentment of the soul. And I think
that's a beautiful quote.
And I think nowadays you can see it so much because of social media culture. The fact that we're really it's in our nature to seek more and to look for people above us and try and derive our satisfaction, never be truly fulfilled in ourselves, because we always want something better, and it's on full display through Instagram, through all these social media platforms.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes atheism particularly depressing then, because if it's a forward-looking metric, if you're clear-sighted, you'll know that the end is coming, and is coming rapidly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you're being bombarded with all these images of people who are apparently happy through either getting money or relationships or whatever it is, then you're even more depressed. And
the purpose of life, according to in an atheistic world, must just be to acquire as much wealth as possible, or to be the most desirable, or something like that. Yeah.
Something worldly, something temporary.
Exactly.